future for upstate New York. This is the future for America.
Investing in the future, that's the goal of new funding and incentives aimed at increasing semiconductor chip manufacturing in the state. We'll hear from the state agency tasked with helping that industry grow. Hello and welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray in Albany. State and federal lawmakers are working to support the growing semiconductor or microchip market by making a major investment in the manufacturing company in upstate New York. Global Foundries, based out of Malta, is receiving some $1.5 billion in federal grant money to build a fabrication site and expand the current one. Another $575 million will be coming from state investments. The site expected to produce 1 million chips a year and add over 1,000 new jobs. Joining us now to give additional insight in the state of the semiconductor industry here in New York, Kevin Eunice, Chief Operating Officer and Executive Deputy Commissioner for Empire State Development. Kevin, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks, John.
For those who have never heard of Empire State Development, is it an agency? What is it you guys do?
Yeah, it's an agency. Empire State Development is the state's economic development agency, which means we do, a lot of work supporting small businesses. But we have a statewide presence. So if you think about the I Love New York marketing, for example, that's something we do to bring tourists into New York. At the end of the day, we work with businesses to provide opportunities for New Yorkers and job opportunities.
I feel like you guys are the wizard behind the curtain. We don't see what you're doing, but if you're doing it right, that's probably fine, right?
That's right. My mother asked me, what is that Empire State Development? And she always forgets where I work. But
got you. Talk about what's going on with the semiconductors and why, first of all, why is it so important that we be part of this? Because we saw a shortage, especially during the pandemic, didn't we, with chips?
Yeah. So during COVID, as you say, there was this shortage, and what we realized, and I think everybody knew, was that manufacturing of semiconductors had moved offshore. They'd moved to Asia. And so with the supply chain constraints around COVID, we suddenly couldn't get chips for cars, and so the Federal CHIPS Act and Governor Hochul's Green CHIPS Act was about trying to reshore those manufacturing of semiconductor chips, right? To make sure that we have the supply chains in secure for this. Semiconductors are in everything, right? There's nothing electronic that you use that doesn't have a semiconductor in it, that isn't, from your car to your phone to your lights, everything has semiconductors in it. So when there's a constraint on that, there's a real constraint on the economy.
Now, when we see a need nationally to have more production here, I would imagine every state would love to say, "Hey, we'll make them here. Give us money. We'll help build something here." How do we separate ourselves from the pack? Was the fact that we were more aggressive with how we package things, or was it also the Global Foundries was already here? Talk me through that a little bit.
I think it's all of those things. So there's an international competition, as we said, chips moving overseas for a long time. And so there's this competition both internationally and from state to state to bring that industry into New York. We've invested in the R&D with the Albany Nanotech, for example. That's really key to this industry in terms of R&D, in terms of the ecosystem necessary to grow your business. But the incentives, without Senator Schumer and the Federal CHIPS Act, these Global Foundries or any of these companies wouldn't be looking at the U.S. And frankly, without Governor Hochul and the Green CHIPS Act, we wouldn't be bringing them to New York.
So this really was a partnership between what we did at the state level and the federal money as well.
Absolutely, yeah, both are critical. They needed both partners and incentive packages to make that choice to do it in New York.
For those who don't know the difference between a computer chip and a potato chip, really, except one will choke you. Well, I guess they both would. But this goes beyond just some plant up in Malta, New York, right? This is going to have ancillary benefits, I would think, across the board.
Oh, sure. One of the reasons we're so excited about semiconductor manufacturing is this, what we always use is the term multipliers. And that means for every job you create in the semiconductor industry, I've seen estimates 5-7 jobs in the community. And so you create a job up at Global Foundries, there are folks working all over the capital region. You've been here for as long as I've been here. I've seen you on TV, and you drive the Northway, you go to Glens Falls, and you see what Global Foundries presence has done already for this community. It's a different regional economy, substantially different because of where they are today. you double that, and we'll see even more growth and more opportunity around that.
And I'm assuming it goes beyond just, you give somebody a $60,000 a year job. Now maybe they locate here, they need a place to live. They need to go buy groceries and buy things for their yard. But also, I would think, I remember years ago, this is a long time ago, I went to Austin, Texas, when they were big in the tech stuff, and I talked to the mayor there, and he said, I didn't understand it until he explained it to me. He said, if we put a factory in that does something, he said, they need things that other little factories that don't get the headlines, and they start springing up like little mushrooms around that. Well, is that something you can see as well with this?
Yeah, the supply chain is very deep in this industry. So you're right, you make the chips, but there's all sorts of components that go into it. You have a factory that's millions of square feet of clean room. So there's all of the metal, as you said, all the parts that need to be made for the machines, where you buy the machines, the electricians that both install them and service them, the plumbers that move the gases and the fluids. And so the folks who drive the trucks to bring the stuff back and forth. Absolutely, the supply chain around it grows. And then it's also, you create this sort of virtual cycle and ecosystem, right? When you think about Albany Nanotech and the work going on out there,
sure,
along with Global Foundries, between those two, you start to create this churn of smart people in this space who start making their own businesses and doing their own products, and that's where you see the incredible growth around this industry.
If this goes well, I mean, we view it from a lens of America. We're going to have our own chips now. This will supply us, but will we start seeing customers from outside of the country who recognize that we're making this stuff here and want to come to us as opposed to just going to Asia?
Absolutely. I mean, Global Foundries is what's called the foundry. That means they make chips for other folks, right? They make chips for the car industry. So GM is one of their big customers. When you get in your car, it's starting and you hit your fob and it opens doors because of chips, and that's one of the things that Global Foundries does. They also are a supplier to the Department of Defense and the military. So you think about national economic security,
yeah,
but also the national military security. That Global Foundries does things like satellite chips, right? And so they have customers from all over the world. They have plants all over the world, but this is by far their biggest and will be even larger.
We're so politically polarized in this country right now, and New York's a little bit less so because we're more of a blue state, but unless you go upstate, downstate. But I feel like I didn't hear one negative word said about this. It seems like this is one of those issues, development and economic development, where no matter what stripe they are, everybody likes this idea of what's going on.
Yeah, when you can provide opportunities for people to have good paying jobs, it's hard to say that isn't what we want to do. And I think everybody agrees the investments we're making. We saw the industry go from primarily manufacturing in the US a generation ago to 10% of the manufacturing. And so bringing that back and all the benefits that come with it, the national security implications, but at the end of the day, like jobs for real people, right? Across the board, folks from PhD economists to folks who have to fix those machines and the technicians.
Right.
It's hard to not realize the value to our country at so many different levels around this industry.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to leave it there. Kevin Eunice, Empire State Development, thanks for coming in. We do appreciate it. Exciting times. They start putting shovels in the ground soon on this, or is it a ways down the road?
Next year. Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Well, newly signed legislation will change when local elections can happen in New York, but some are already resisting the change. We'll hear from a county executive why he's filing a lawsuit now, trying to keep the change from happening. If you've got a story or a comment or an idea for something we should be doing here, let us know. Email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X, which I still call Twitter, probably you too, at WTEN. Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray in Albany. We're continuing to follow developments regarding legislation that shifts when local elections can happen, with some counties in upstate New York planning to sue over these changes that are coming. Under the plan, elections that normally take place on odd-numbered years are going to be moved to take place on even years. This would put them on the same ballot as the larger national and federal elections. Opponents argue this will drown out the smaller local issues that those races usually address. Supporters, meanwhile, say the move would increase voter turnout.
If your concern is local issues aren't getting the attention they deserve, how could they be getting the attention they deserve if only 20% of people are voting in those races? They would get far more attention if you have 70, 80% of eligible voters casting ballots in those local races.
Joining us now to give additional insight on the legal pushback to this change of the election year, Onondaga County Executive Ryan McMahon. Ryan, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
We all grew up with the phrase, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Was this broken? Is that why they tried to fix it? Or what's your take on this with the whole changing of the year?
Yeah, nothing was broken. The reality is, if anything's broken, typically in government, and I've been in government since I was 25 years old, you have conversations. You talk to vested parties, you talk to the community, you hold committee meetings, and that's not what happened here, right? This happened literally, was voted on literally the last minute of the last session with no input from counties, no input from towns, no input from stakeholders, because this was done in the dark of night because this is a political experiment by the majority party in the state of New York to try to win elections that they don't have a lot of success winning throughout statewide. So the political experiment's not something that they were proud of. They didn't want to forecast it across the state because regular folks don't even know this has even happened yet, right? They don't even know this has happened. Certainly because of that, the correct process for this type of change was not followed by the state legislature.
What do you think's happening here? Do you feel like Republicans are doing better in those odd years? So Democrats deliberately are kind of targeting that, saying, let's just move them to the even where we seem to have a better turnout. Is that what you're seeing here?
Yeah, I think this is political, right? The theory is that if you move local races and you drown out the local issue and the local records of these officials into even years where there's already a built-in turnout model that they feel more comfortable with, that they may win more races. They may not. They don't know the answer. This is an experiment. Similar to early voting. They went from early voting, which everybody basically agreed with, but when they didn't get the results they wanted, they put more mandates on counties to expand more polling locations, even though it didn't really change turnout percentages overall in elections. So these are all experiments by one party control in Albany to try to win more elections. And they did it wrong. I mean, that's the bottom line, is that they did it wrong. We have constitutions and charters in county government, many of us. And our charters basically give home rule, and the state has a constitution where we are a strong home rule state. So the only way to change our county charters is to let the people who voted on the charters vote to change it. And that's at the local level. That's not New York City politicians who exempted their own communities from these laws.
Now, when you take legal action here, do you have a prayer in the courts? If this is such a blue state, do you end up in front of fellow Democrats, the ones who put this through? Or do you feel like there's a fair chance that they're going to really look at this and say, you may have jumped the gun here a little bit and you didn't go through all the procedures you should have done?
Yeah, there's two issues here, right? There's the actual process, right? And that's what was done wrong here. The policy, we can have a debate on the policy, right? It's a bad idea for many, many reasons. I mean, voters are not going to want to have 3 or 4 pages on, on a ballot to vote on election day, specifically in busier elections. And local issues matter. We're the closest to the people, but that's a debate we can have later on. But the process was done incorrectly. We are a charter county in Onondaga County. The voters voted on when we have local elections. New York State is a strong home rule state. The only way to change our charter is through a constitutional amendment. And that's not what the state legislature did when they voted on this in the dark of night. And that's not what happened when Governor Hochul signed this flawed legislation on Christmas Eve weekend on a Friday night with little fanfare. Look, you've covered politics for a long time. You know, when we do something we're proud of, we go and we want to talk about it. We want to have press conferences about it. We want to have committee meetings. We want to even maybe travel the state to champion the issue. That's not what happened here, because nobody's proud of this down there. This was a partisan play being led by partisan politicians who exempted their own communities they represent from the law. which is unbelievable if you think about it.
Was there much pushback when they were pushing this law through, or is this the byproduct of having a one-party rule state where it doesn't really get the light of day even in the legislature, it just kind of gets shuffled on through and pushed to the governor's desk?
Yeah, this was everything that's wrong with one-party rule. And really, look at red states are studying the work being done by the partisans in New York, and they're going to go do it to Democrats in red states, right? I mean, this isn't good for our democracy. The reality was there was no notice on this. This was done in the dark of night, both being passed and being signed by the governor. Because most people don't even realize that their local elections might be getting changed. It saves no money for the taxpayer, by the way. DAs, judges, county clerks still will be in local years, in odd years, and city elections and village elections will. So this saves $0 for the taxpayers. It is just an experiment by partisan politicians. And if you look at from the legislature, if you actually look at the votes of the members who represent the impacted areas, this didn't even pass. So if New York City legislators had to exempt themselves from this, this wouldn't even have passed. So I think overall, from a policy standpoint, it's bad, but we could have that debate with the voters if it was done correctly. But that's not what these legislators want. They don't want constitutional amendments where the voters decide when the local election should be, because they'll lose, just like they lose with many different ballot initiatives over the last few years.
We're in the last minute or so, but I don't want to go off too far off the path here. But we really are two states in a way, aren't we? You brought up the issue with New York City versus upstate. I've seen it where you see the breakdown after a presidential election of which counties voted red, which counties voted blue. It's kind of stunning in some ways how where a lot of the votes are concentrated is very blue, and the rest of the state seems a lot of it red.
Yeah, look, I think in Onondaga County, we're a purple county, so certainly you can have success if you're a Republican or a Democrat. But look, Long Island has turned red. We've seen that over the last few election cycles. Certainly, upstate New York tends to be a little bit more conservative than New York City. What we've always asked is, and we've always done a good job, both political parties until recently, is to respect home rule authority. The worm always turns, and certainly, you can't complain about things being done in capitals in red states when you're doing worse things in capitals in blue states.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Ryan McMahon, Onondaga County Executive, thank you for coming on today. We'll keep a close eye on this as it goes up towards the courts and see where they come down on all of this. Thank you for coming on today.
Appreciate your time.
Lawmakers once again pushing to make to-go alcohol sales permanent. When we come back, we'll hear the renewed push to keep this measure to help the restaurants out and the reservations some of the liquor store owners still have. By the way, if you have a comment or story idea, let us know about it. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X, formerly known as Twitter, at WTEN. Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray in Albany. There's an ongoing push from lawmakers to make alcohol to go permanent across the state. The measure, which became popular during the pandemic, set to expire next year. The alcohol to go law has been extended before, as we said, but a new push looks to legalize the practice that helped the restaurant and bar industry stay afloat during the pandemic. The governor is looking to see it passed as an item in this year's budget. State Restaurant Association supports the whole move, saying the industry is still struggling with high costs. But the State Liquor Store Association, they have some concerns.
All businesses are down. Our industry is down. Anything, with the restaurants, I know some restaurants are struggling still. We're just concerned about if that bar or restaurant turns into a mini liquor store, which we're totally against. And hopefully that industry will be policed.
Governor Hochul has said that the permanent to-go policy would keep the requirements it currently has in place, such as a requirement to purchase a substantial food if you want to get that alcohol. Keeping up with AI, the governor looking to make a significant investment in studying artificial intelligence this year. The Governor Hochul proposed budget. She wants to invest $250 million for artificial intelligence research. She's also proposed Empire AI. That's a partnership with SUNY, CUNY, and private institutions to research this technology. Supporters say this would help demystify AI and lead to the development of important technology.
It was those early investments that led to the semiconductor industry, which led to global foundries, which led to Micron, which will ultimately have 50,000 jobs. It's exactly what we want to do here. And part of these investments, part of this AI research is to help us solve some really big issues.
Stick around, be back with a look at the week ahead in just a bit. By the way, if you have a comment or story idea, please let us know about it. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're at WTEN. Finally, in Empire State Weekly, we are just 4 months away from New York's primary, and state Republicans are beginning the process of picking their candidates for the big races. Some candidates not chosen this past week are now looking to get on the ballot through petitioning. We'll look to keep an eye on the biggest state and federal elections and bring you the latest analysis on all of it. For now, from all of us here at Empire State Weekly, I'm John Gray in Albany. We'll see you right here next week. And don't forget, you can watch this show, Empire State Weekly, all over New York State. Here's the full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 TV stations across the great state of New York.